Hello, boomers! My name is not Yanananana. Actually, I am Ian Kirkpatrick, author, robot, loin streamer, and today I'm wearing the safety glasses because we are going to have some, hot takes. Yes. And in case you didn't know, today I am mildly dressed like my character, Yanananana, from my hit prophetic novel, Boom Boom Boom, available at all of your favorite retailers if you're curious about this outfit. Actually, I had this shirt, which you can sort of see, in my closet before I wrote the book, and then when I wrote the book, I gave him the shirt, as you can somewhat see right here. I freaking love that he wears a little pink shirt in the book. Anyway, hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, robot, and loin streamer, and today I wanted to do like 5 hot takes. And if we have time at the end of this video, I will do the bonus hot take. But before we get started, just a couple of things. Number 1, if you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number 2, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. There are 2 ways to be featured on the channel. Number 1 is Lamwai, which is the monthly prompt writing thing that I do on the channel, where I give you guys a prompt, you write a short story, I read them here, and then we bask in the greatness of this community because you guys are rock stars. Number 2 is if you are an indie author and you would like to be exposed to the sub count on this channel here, now, or in the future, you just submit your first chapter and your cover, and then it'll be read on this channel and hopefully help readers find your books and tickle their pickles so they want to go and ingest the rest. That was totally done on purpose. And number 3, if you would like to check out any of my books, whether to enjoy them or roast them, they're available at all of your favorite retailers, some of them as audiobooks, some as hardcover, all of them as paperback and ebook. And look at these beautiful character elements right down here. You've got the human skull, you've got the white cat, there's a raven skull right there, and a nuclear explosion. You've also got my boys over here. You can't see them very well, but there's some Yakuza back there. And also specifically, this book, my forthcoming novel, Bleed More Body More, the sequel to Bleed More Body More, or the follow-up novel, comes out at the end of this month. The cover is beautiful by the incredibly talented Samuel Johnson. Check it out. Get it yourself to look at its beauty in person. It's so good. It's so good. And I hope you enjoy it. Actually, I would make a joke, but I genuinely hope that you enjoy it because the story means a lot to me and I love the characters in that book. So, with that said, those are all of the announcements. Oh yeah, and you can also get my books at your library. If you request them with the librarian, they can be ordered. So, I'd appreciate if you did that. A disclaimer before jumping into the topic of the day is that all of these are obviously just opinions and observations and my thoughts, and part of it is to start conversation about some things, to get some, and maybe encourage other people to share their hot takes or share their perspectives, and maybe you'll change my mind on how I feel about some of these things. Maybe you won't, but the great thing is that even if we disagree on some things, we can still like each other. Like, I am sure that you do not have the same level of interest or compassion for Jeffrey Dahmer as I do, and you can even think that I am a freak for it. That is absolutely fine, but we can still be friends despite our differences. Anyway, these are just some random thoughts, not super organized, but I wanted to get them out there, get the discussion had with you guys, and see what your thoughts are either on this, or invite you to leave your own hot takes down below. This is actually a safe space, unironically, for you guys to share your opinions, because I don't care if we've got differences. I don't care if you care about things that I don't care about, or vice versa. Everybody is free to love and hate and judge the things that they feel like. And I just hope that we can have some interesting conversations and share some perspectives, and yeah. So my first writing book hot take is that fiction doesn't have to have a lesson. So one conversation that I keep seeing pop up all the time, especially, is about themes in books or whether the book is teaching a lesson. And I think this comes up especially a lot in middle grade and YA. I've seen the conversation so many times in YA about how YA is meant to teach children or teach teens what appropriate behavior is or what is cool, and it's specifically being used to morality police or morality teach to children or teens. And that kind of keeps carrying over into adulthood as well, because I've seen enough conversations in general in the writing community about inserting lessons and whether a book should have a lesson and what even is a lesson varies from perspective to perspective. I've seen people say that even something that's just like having a theme in your story of maybe working with your family through all of the difficulties is theoretically a lesson, but I don't know if I would consider a theme specifically a lesson. I think a theme can be a lesson, but a theme isn't always a lesson, if that makes any sense. I think a lesson typically requires the author to specifically write a story, like a morality play, with the intention of teaching the reader something. I think if the reader gets something out of the book, or if there is a deeper theme that's like love conquers all, or you can make it through anything with the right support system, or great success comes at a great loss. Like if you include anything that's a theme in your story, it's not necessarily a lesson, it's just a story built into the parable of the characters and whatever they're doing. But I think a lesson requires the author to be thinking about what it is that they want to educate the reader on. And I think that's something very different than just having a theme when you go into a story. This is the person, the author, creating the story with the intentions of telling the reader something that they think the reader doesn't know, and then building stuff around the story in order to further educate the reader. And I don't think fiction needs that. I don't think, especially fiction for adults, should be trying to teach people anything. It can entertain and it can bring new perspective, but in order to go in and educate, I think is completely out of line from one adult to another. And I also think it's kind of dubious for authors to try to supersede parents via trying to use YA to teach people things. Like if we look at Jack of Hearts, where it's trying to teach students how to have sexually active relationships, how to give blowjobs, how to use people as dildos without emotional attachment, I think that's dangerous. And I don't think it is the job of a YA book to be teaching children about sexuality. I think that is an overstep of the trust that a parent has in books, and I think it's disrespectful to parents to try to sneak stuff like that into books, and I think it's immoral, really. I might even posit that it is immoral to specifically try to sneak things into YA or children's books in order to teach children when parents don't know. And there is a difference between parents purchasing a book with the purpose of educating a child, such as like, you're getting this book of ABC, you're getting this picture book of ABCs to teach your child some of these different things. That's completely different than sneaking morality into your book, specifically to educate the teen on what is good and what is bad, and you've created this whole universe in order to set up those people bad, these people good. Like, again, Jack of Hearts, demonizing monogamous relationships the entire time. There's actual misogyny in that book where the characters all hate females, and they insult straight relationships every single time. They're denigrating. The main character is completely denigrating to all the female characters in the book, including his best friend. And I think it is dubious to try to sneak in lessons that then undermine parents and hide what it is you're telling the parents. In the same way that I would say hiding smut in YA books from parents in order to sneak sexual intercourse into children's books is also immoral. Like, you put a YA face on it in order to sneak it into kids' hands. We might need to call Chris Hansen. So again, hot take number one, I don't think fiction needs to have lessons. It's meant to be entertaining, and if there is a deeper meaning to it, if you can philosophize to it, if there's thoughts about trauma or growth or experience or anything else like that, that's gravy on top. But I think themes are different than an author going into a story with the purpose of trying to educate the reader on something. And that's with me knowing that Bodymore, Dead End Drive, and Boom all have themes that you can catch on to and analyze for deeper meanings in the story. But I'm not trying to teach you anything. They're just there. Number two is memoir POVs don't need to be likable. So I've recently started reading this book called Tokyo Vice by Jake Adelstein, and I was on the Goodreads page the other day, yesterday, maybe it was this morning, and was looking over some of the reviews to see what people were thinking about it who have read it. I'm only about 30 pages into it, and a lot of people in the reviews were saying how much of a douche they thought the author was. Now, you can get douchey vibes immediately because the author gave his own book a 5-star review on Goodreads. That's kind of just in general how it comes off when you rate your own book. But they are talking about the way that he cheats on his wife, or the way that he talks about, pretty much the way that he cheats on his wife and the way that he talks about women. And just going at him for being kind of a douchebag. And I've noticed this also when, in some of the articles that I haven't gotten to share yet on this channel. One of them was about the book that tore the literary community apart, and I may or may not ever get around to actually talking about that. I have the articles saved. I haven't gotten to talk about them yet, but that is one of them that got ripped apart because they didn't like some of the ways that the author referred to some of her students or the thoughts that she had, because they thought that they were insulting, and she was just laying bare her thought processes, who she was at the time, the way that she thought, and how she grew as a person. And I'm here to say that humans in general can be kind of abrasive. We are also very used to our own way of thinking, and we may not necessarily think that the way that we think or the way that we thought in the past was insulting at the time of us thinking those things, because we might not have really considered the subjects of what we were saying, or we might just be insensitive. As I have been called insensitive like 1.5 million times, I accept that I may not be the greatest at this, but humans are humans. Humans are imperfect. Humans are going to say things that offend some other people, that we're going to live lives that are not moral necessarily, or that would fit your morality, and we're going to believe things that you may not believe or that you may think are stupid. And when you're reading a memoir, you're reading somebody's life and experiences. We're assuming that the memoirs are true and that they're not somebody bullshitting for authority and funny money and fame. Sometimes they are, but we're going to pretend in a best case scenario that these memoirs are honest. You're just getting somebody's brutal truth about who they are and what they are, and that person doesn't have to be likable. A lot of people that are into shady things or doing shady things live a lot of lives that we don't live, and you don't have to consider that person moral or even likable to think that what they're doing is interesting or to invest in what it is that they've captured. Always approach any nonfiction or memoir with the level of, not scrutiny, but the level of caution that this person's personality is going to come out in it. Like when I was reading Those Who Fight Monsters by the FBI guy, Ressler, you could tell that he had some arrogance to him from the way that he described things, but you would based on the position. You're going to be arrogant when you're kind of the top of the FBI or a top member of the FBI, and you're creating this whole department for behavioral study units for tracking down serial killers. When you're so high in demand, you're going to have a bit of an ego, which is fine because you're human. But also just go into the book understanding that this character is a person who has their own personality, and it's going to come out what their flaws are, that they might not even recognize what their own flaws are because they're so used to seeing them. Or somebody is not necessarily since I'm not that far into the Jake book, I don't know what the situation is with his wife and his cheating. I obviously actually despise cheaters because of my background with my father, but I'm not going to use that to ding against the author and go after the author, because I'm there for the stories that the author is telling, and I don't have to like him as a person to find his perspective or his experiences interesting, if that makes sense. But for some reason, it seems like there's this assumption that in order to enjoy a book or be invested in a book, or at least say that you're liking a book of some kind, you have to agree with who the main character is. And this has to do with like morality policing that I've seen also in fiction, where people seem to have a difficult time reading or enjoying a book where maybe the main character is immoral or is flawed or is going through terrible things, and they have bad opinions, and maybe they grow from those opinions or maybe they don't. And it's okay to have flawed and immoral characters as long as it makes sense. As long as you're be there for the story, not for the flawless moral queen that is Isla Crown. Which, that's going to be a discussion in a later video. I would like to compare Isla Crown and stuff like Layla from The Savior's Champion. That was the one. And A lot of these female heroines that see absolutely no problem whatsoever with murdering everyone around them, and they're still considered the good guy, even though they're like power hungry and justifying mass murder. We're gonna get to that in a later video. But for now, just know you don't have to like the main character or the POV or every thought and feeling and response that a memoir has to the others around them. Just know that those are people, and I think it actually shows more emotional maturity and flexibility to be able to try to understand why somebody thinks the way that they do when you disagree with how they are, and to put it into perspective of this is who they were at this time and this is why they think that way. And that's totally fine. Understanding why somebody thinks the way that they do, whether it's because of their background, because they've had experience in the past that has tainted them to certain things, whether they just have biases for whatever other reason, understanding why they have those things and giving grace to it is actually an expression of compassion and understanding that may or may not be turning into a lost art. Yeah. Number 3 is you don't need a degree or an agent to be a good writer. So I have seen, have I seen some massive elitism in the writing community, both from published and unpublished authors, with people saying, hey, even if you're a good writer, you have to have an agent to double check that shit, or else you're probably a terrible writer. Like, somebody else will okay it if they think that you're a good writer. Someone else will say that you're worth it. Or you can't be a good writer without a degree. A lot of people then go into programs for creative writing thinking that they're going to learn how to write. But let me tell you, the thing that you really get from going to a creative writing degree is the ability to network with other people. Because a lot of success, I hate to say this, but a lot of success actually has more to do with luck than it has to do with skill. Knowing certain people, getting the doors open, having somebody say your name at a cocktail party or at a writer's retreat or something like that is much more likely to get you a deal than good writing, and cold calling, basically, with query letters. A degree won't make you a good writer because a writing degree specifically is only as good as the work that you put into it. And a writing degree really only forces you to actually do the work that you would otherwise have to hold yourself to in order to get that stuff done. It can help you learn how to put a reading list together if you've never put a reading list together and you've sort of fallen out of reading or never been into reading, but it can help you learn the value behind reading if you're not much of a reader, and how to integrate the things that you like and the things that you don't like into your fiction so that you do become a better writer. And it's an expedited situation in order to become a better writer because you're focused on it. But you don't need a degree to be a good writer. Having a degree doesn't make you a good writer. I say this as a creative writing master's degree holder. It doesn't make you a good writer. And if you enjoy specifically writing genre fiction or to market fiction, I think a degree will generally not help you because your degree seeking in general is going to be more focused on character-driven stories and writing things with subtext, and it's not going to be about marketing or querying or how to find success with genre marketing and genre fiction. And a lot of the academia, at least when I was there, looked down on genre fiction. Even sci-fi, which can cover very complicated and complex situations, generally it was still more character-driven focus and literary fiction focus. And I have seen so much arguing and fighting in the writing community about genre fiction is better, character fiction is better, literary fiction sucks, blah, 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 blah. Look, it's just different fiction for different people interested in different things. That's all that it is. Enjoy your market fiction, enjoy your literary fiction. I'm going to be over here enjoying whatever it is I enjoy. Model Land, fairly enjoyable. Also, I like a lot of nonfiction. I actually have a lot of success with nonfiction. But yeah, don't let anybody fool you into thinking that you need to have an agent or somebody else approve of what you're writing in order for you to feel like you are a good writer. Now, there are ways to tell if you are a good or a bad writer, because agents garbage all the time. How many of you are actually going to tell me that 50 Shades of Grey is an excellently written book because an agent said it was great, or because an agent took it and they published it? Yeah, so an agent does not ensure that something is great quality, just as a degree doesn't. Because how many of you would say that literary fiction sucks? Yeah, I bet you a bunch of those people that write literary fiction have a degree. So just different types of writing. An agent is also just another person, and I am not really for this writing by committee where you can actually get helpful feedback from committee members, from crit partners. But an agent saying that your book is good doesn't automatically mean it's good, and having a degree doesn't automatically mean that you are above the competition and going to be getting a deal because you write better. If you write better. 'Cause let me tell you, some people, like I said, you get what you put into the degree-seeking program, and it's literally still all you and your creative ideas and your ability to get work done. So there's that. Hot take number 4, indies/self-published books are judged harder in everything than traditionally published books. So on this channel, if you go through my book reviews, you'll see books from small presses, books that are self-published, indie published, and trad published books, including some Karen McManus books, which are very, very popular, including House Full of Ghosts, which is traditionally published, including Alexa Dunn's books, which are traditionally published. So you'll see me review and walk through, and Light Lark is coming eventually. You'll see me go through a bunch of different books from all over the spectrum of publishing. And I, in my reviews, walk through the plots and then walk through my critiques for the plots if they were not great, or for the stories, or for the characters, and go through all of the things that I thought weakened the story or just didn't work. I don't think I did A Stranger in the House on this channel, because what a disappointment that was. Bro, I thought it was a ghost story. I didn't even know anything about that book before I picked it up. I just thought, ghost story. It was a domestic thriller. It was a mistake to read, honestly, but it's very popular, and she's traditionally published, but it had so many issues with the plot, and I do not care enough to go back and reread it so that I can do a plot summary. Like, I'm sorry, that ship has sailed. But indies are judged for having subpar covers or basic covers, and I get it. I don't like the 3D model covers. Those kind of look like porn games to me, generally. But if you go and look at traditionally published book, like I'm looking at the Shards right now, and there's really nothing fantastical about this. I look at the books on my shelf all the time for my traditionally published books, and generally I don't care what the cover is when I'm at the store and picking up books from authors that I am looking for. But you will see indie books, one, dragged for covers, and I think as long as the cover doesn't look like it's hand-drawn or it's kind of just garbagely put together, then we're good, because so many traditionally published books just have like a basic maybe scenery on the cover, or maybe it's just a plain color and then the title, and you can get super extravagant with the drawings, but there are also very basic photographic images on the cover that really don't mean anything. But indie books will be dragged for this. You also have indie books that are constantly dragged for not making sense, whereas traditionally published books make huge bucks because they get all of the marketing that gets them out there to all of these people, and it's great. Look at the Karen McManus books. I recommend you go check those out here on this channel to get an idea of what I mean, because those are very popular. She couldn't even get 4chan and Reddit. Like, oh my gosh, she mentions 4chan and Reddit in her stories, and she doesn't even know how those websites work. But those books are super popular, and she's got another one and another one and another one constantly coming out. So, like, what do you want? But I don't see a difference in the quality of plotting between indie books and trad books. You're just as likely to get a great book in trad as you are with indie. It just so happens that there are just more books in indie because there's no gatekeeping. So the ratio is probably the same. You're just dealing with many, many more books. You also end up with editing errors that also happen in traditionally published books, but people will drag indie books for minor typos or errors and talk constantly about, did this person even get an editor, when you'll see similar things in a lot of traditionally published books. I even have, I know it was a small press, but the Jeffrey Dahmer book that I have, the Dahmer Detective, it was done by a small press, and there is a chapter that straight up ends in the middle of a thought. Like, I don't even think the paragraph ends with a period. It's like the middle of a sentence, and then the next chapter just starts. And that was a publisher. I think that the American Psycho book kind of confused me at some point, because I think that one also drops off like in the middle of something, and then it just goes to the next chapter. And I think that's actually there on purpose, because Patrick Bateman is having sort of a moment, and he just kind of loses it, and so then mid-sentence, he just disassociates, and then we're in the next chapter. But if that was in an indie book, that would have been dragged as being incomplete with editors. I think the same thing would happen with Butcher Boy over there, because Butcher Boy has imperfect English. Like, it doesn't use punctuation the normal way. Everything's in a paragraph. doesn't really, I don't think it uses quotation marks very often, even though people are talking, because it's done in an Irish way, where he just starts storytelling about what's going on in the way that he does. But it doesn't follow proper punctuation rules, because it's doing a more artistic thing. And he gets away with it because it's traditionally published and was also trad published in 1992 or prior to 1992. But if that was done in indie published, it would have been dragged for the grammar choices instead of it being an artistic choice. So, maybe, what am I trying to say here? It's like, maybe pull back on the opinion, like the harshness of it, of assuming that everything indie is trash and everything that's trad is like quality, because that's not actually the case. And you might be surprised if you open your mind and give things another chance that otherwise you might have just written off because preconceived notions. Number 5 is, and the number 5 hot take of the day, get ready for it, is fans are always right and creators should do as we say. Culture is toxic. I've been seeing this conversation happen a lot more recently. One of them was with a headline that I have no idea if it was true or not, but it had to do with the Spy Times family mangaka saying something like he doesn't love those characters and it was a side project. Now, I have no idea how legitimate that headline is because I didn't really seek into it, but what I wanted to bring up was the comments section on that, where so many people in the comments are saying, well, you know, the customer is always right. The customer is the one that's paying your bills, so you got to do what we say. And this goes back to like the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle situation, where he wanted to work on something that was not Sherlock Holmes, but the fans only wanted Sherlock Holmes. So he continued writing the series that he didn't want to be working on in order to get paid, because that's all that people wanted. And to some extent, yeah, you don't have to actually purchase anything that the author is doing, or the creator is doing, or the artists are doing that you don't like. But I think that this becomes a very toxic culture when fans are demanding that creators do things for them. And I think that this has only gotten more inflamed in recent years because of the way that arts are being used politically, where you have stuff like the She-Hulk finale that was written specifically to antagonize and insult the detractors. So the arts are not being used for the arts or the storytelling anymore. It's to be used as an insult to someone. And so then now a bunch of people that are followers of things also feel like they have a control or a demand over what the creators are doing, because the creators are directly interacting and saying that we're not making a story specifically just to tell a story, but to interact with the fans. I also remember a couple of years ago, back when Teen Wolf was new-ish on MTV, and a large portion of teenage girl fan base wanted Styles and Derek to be in a romantic relationship, and they were going after the story creators, the story writers, saying, you owe us this, we are your fans, you owe it to us to put these two in a gay relationship. And the same thing happened in Supernatural, with the fans pressuring the writers to do something specific with the characters, as opposed to just being fans of the show. And I've seen this sense of entitlement more and more, where people are like, we're fans of your show, thus you owe us to do these things. It's the same thing sometimes on YouTube, where people go, look, I sub to you on YouTube, which means you need to do this thing for me because I've given you my support. Now, it's great if a creator wants to interact with and do things specifically with the viewers in mind, but I think it's another thing for fans of something to suddenly feel entitled to control the creator or author of a certain creative property because they're fans of the work. I think that crosses a line, and I think it's a very difficult situation, because it's not saying that anybody has to like anything and everything that comes out of an author. I like Bret Easton Ellis, but I still have stuff that I'm not going to read from him because I'm just not interested in it. But I'm not going to go to Bret Easton Ellis and be demanding that he write the things that I want to read. I'm there to see his perspective and what it is that he creates, and I'll buy the things that I want, and I won't buy the things that I don't want. And I'm kind of wondering where this went, instead of just demanding that people meet your expectations and only create what you want them to create. I get that consumers fund the arts by, purchasing into them and supporting them. But isn't there, doesn't it say something messed up to anybody else when consumers or viewers of the content or enjoyers of the content are basically like, you will keep doing this or else we hope that your life is ruined. It's not saying that you have to follow that creator onto a new project, but like think of the creators that are like, I've made this into a nice bow and ended it and I'm moving on. And the fans, because they don't want that thing that they really like to end, like start going after the author instead of just letting that thing end and getting their rest of their fulfillment from fan fiction, because that's what it's there for, you guys. It doesn't have to just be smut. It can be the continuation of something that has been neatly closed. And stuff can be neatly closed to allow a creator to move on to something else. I don't know. This is a complicated subject, and I'd love to hear your opinions on it, but is there some middle ground that we can get that is creators are allowed to move on between the things that they want to do without fans like attacking them, at the same time as like pleasing fans by creating certain contents and properties and not becoming slaves to that situation where some fans suddenly feel entitled to demand that authors and creators do what they want to do? Because then also that gets into the conversation of like, okay, so if fans get to yell at creators for what they get to make next with their time and their efforts, then what if you were, say, a fan of Teen Wolf and you didn't like Steric? Now, which of the fan bases are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to the Steric fan base, or are you going to listen to the not Steric fan base? Because both of these people now feel the entitlement, because you can't just listen to one. If you listen to the demands of one of them, well, now you owe both of them, right? So, like, how does this work? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, it's time to check. Do we have time for the bonus hot take? I need to know. Are we doing bonus hot take? It is confirmed. We're doing bonus hot take. I hope you're ready. I don't think the bonus hot take is quite as spicy as the fan base one. So, bonus hot take. Marketing politics is not marketing the arts, and it's ruining the creative community. In the recent years, especially with hashtag #MaCultureWar, the arts have taken a back seat to instead political pundits pushing forward their latest grift while saying there is nothing else out there that exists but anything coming out of the mainstream studios, and wouldn't you guess it, me. A lot of people just suddenly stepping into the arts, deciding that they are going to create something and then entirely marketing themselves based on their politics while insulting their political opponents. And I don't like this. I think it's destructive to the creative community in general, and I have left and or been kicked out of a number of local creative communities because they have been so politicized by this trash that you can't have opinions that are even different from the group. Also, it kind of ruins a lot of critique groups, because now people are looking at your books or your blurbed stories through their political lens instead of letting you just have a story that might have immoral characters. This kind of goes back to number 2, but it also applies with fiction, is people are bringing now their politics to the way that they analyze stories, and it is, I have seen so much of marking ideas or types of characters as red versus blue and then saying you're not allowed to have that as a main character sort of thing because it's wrong, and I never want to see my main character be doing that because I associate that with the blue guys or the red guys. And creative circles are becoming very close-minded, difficult in the current era, and I don't like it. And I don't like that the political enthusiasts, let's go with that, will claim that they care about the arts because their favorite political pundit now suddenly cares about the arts, but then we'll go into the political space and literally stomp on the creative people that are there, who have been there, and say, fuck you, how come nobody knows about you if you're so great? Nobody said that us on the side that are being creatives are great, but y'all said that you care about creatives, and then you come into the creative space with your political flags and then crush us all, leave trash, and then leave after destroying all of the relationships that we had because you injected politics. All I'm saying is it's destructive, it's not helpful, and can we stop marketing politics as culture? Also, anybody out there, and the side issue, literally, of these political pundits saying the only things that exist are Marvel and DC and Netflix and Amazon, while ignoring all of the creators that have been around for decades, doing things on the side, getting ignored by the big players, and the political pundits will still say nobody is making art, and art is entirely stagnant, and culture is entirely stagnant, while ignoring all of the artists that are not the mainstream. There's stuff out there, guys. There is so much incredible art out there by people that you've never heard of because you don't go looking, but it's there. Take a look every once in a while. I'm not specifically talking about me, but I am an option. So with that said, those are my 5 writing culture hot takes for right now. Let me know what some of yours are down in the comments below. Let me know some of your thoughts on the above. I know. I'm a fucking idiot. Everybody says so, but that is my brand. Hope to have some interesting conversations or hear some interesting thoughts down below. Please keep it civil. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?